World War I was a war of constant innovation, with rapid advances made across the scope of conflict in an incredibly short amount of time. Some of these remain instantly recognisable on the battlefield today, especially when we look at the development of tanks and airplanes. But some innovations came in rather stranger shapes. When World War I comes to mind, the evocative images of scarred landscapes, pockmarked with shell craters and destroyed trenches running as far as the eye can see, immediately spring to mind. Amongst this scene of devastation were the stumps of destroyed trees, all that was left of the once dense woodlands. Villages were, in most places, nothing more than some foundational remains, and cellars if one was lucky. For the artillery observer, this left two issues. The first was that, with a continuous trench line and very few features left around no man's land, it was very difficult to remain hidden as one attempted to observe enemy positions and adjust artillery fire onto them. The second was that there were very few high features to take advantage of, unless on hills and ridges. The few churches that hadn't been destroyed were normally used as easy adjustment points for enemy gunners, and they remained dangerous places to be. Any observer can tell you that even a few metres of elevation can be of huge assistance in getting a better eye of the landscape, and where the enemy are located within it. Without these high points to take advantage of, one's job is immediately more difficult. To overcome this problem, an ingenious idea was born. Lucien-Victor Guirand de Scévola was a French artist and at 43 had been brought into the French army in 1914. Here he had experimented with painted canvas screens to mask gun emplacements. In February 1915, General Joffre had established the Section de Camouflage at Amiens, with de Scévola as its lead. Within a few months, he had invented the first fake tree, a large iron tube camouflaged with bark and canvas, and had erected it near Artois. This was a painstaking process. One couldn't simply erect a new tree on a landscape heavily studied by the opposition. Instead, a tree had to be selected, an artist brought in to sketch and paint it, often in no man's land, before it could then be fashioned to those exact designs. The resulting fake tree would then be erected in place of the real tree in the space of one night. This was clearly a rather dangerous process and required a skilled artist to produce such a design in the dark. Critically, the fake tree would be hollow, with a ladder and viewing port that would allow an observer to sit at the top and pass back information on the locations of enemy positions. These trees could last for years in place. But what was it like to use one? Alexander Douglas Thorburn, a captain in the Royal Field Artillery, described his experience of one while serving in the Roquelancourt sector near Vimy Ridge. I spent many hours in this sector sitting inside a tall steel tube which had been erected by the French as an observation post. It was an ingenious and clever imitation of the trunk of a big tree with the top blown off. It was constructed of steel plates riveted together with a small shuttered slit near the top to look through. The outside of this fake tree trunk was cleverly camouflaged with moss held in place by wire netting. The view was good, but the seat provided was a bicycle saddle made of iron. As there were no supports for one's feet, an hour or two up the tree was a kind of penance. At the bottom of the tree there was an opening at the side away from the enemy, in which my telephonist used to sit with his instrument to transmit any firing orders I wished to give the battery. Fortunately for him, the moment the enemy selected to put a small shell through the bottom of the tree was one afternoon where I had sent him off to get a mug of tea from some hospitable infantry friends of his. Unsurprisingly, as you can gather from Captain Thorburns' description, this could be a rather dangerous existence, but it was also one which greatly assisted artillery officers in their duties. The idea was soon copied by both the German and British armies. The British artist Solomon Joseph Solomon was put in command of the programme to make British camouflage trees. The first would be built and erected in March 1916. Solomon had been an artist before the war and signed up to the Artists' Rifles in September 1914 at the ripe old age of 54. He had quickly identified the potential of camouflage and set about promoting it to senior British officers, eventually being chosen to lead the British Army's camouflage section in December 1915. He had several different concepts, but the observation trees produced for the British Army would be the most prolific. Famously, whilst designing the first tree, Solomon feared that the enemy might find out about his project. It was for that reason he didn't use the bark from the first tree he had found. Instead, he had a daring idea to ask King George himself for permission to use the bark of a willow tree from his garden at Windsor Castle. After all, if anyone could be trusted to keep a secret, it was surely the king. King George agreed, and so Solomon and his men went to his estate and used the bark of one old willow to make a cover for their first fake tree. This would be erected in March 1916, and another 50 or so would follow across the British lines over the remainder of the war. Solomon would return to Britain in 1916 to begin the work of camouflaging the new secret weapon, the tank. In a slightly bizarre coincidence, his daughter Iris would marry Ewan Montague, renowned for his part in the successful deception plan Operation Mincemeat in World War II. Camouflage trees were used throughout the final years of the war, but wouldn't make as significant an appearance in following wars, as the stalemate that had characterised World War I never materialised in such significant fashion again. They remain an iconic and rather unique invention of the First World War. A British camouflage tree can be found at the Imperial War Museum, which I had the pleasure of viewing again recently. The inspiration for this video, it is well worth a visit. They have also recently created their own video on the subject, a fact I discovered halfway through making this one. Hopefully, this has provided a useful further perspective, if with the expectation of slightly fewer views. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you found this interesting and want to learn more about the world's finest arm. Please comment with your thoughts and I'll be delighted to get back to you. Otherwise, this has been The Ardent Gunner. Thank you for your time.